hawezi record
Mwenye anaongea ndo anaweza. Thank you. Thank you. So research is simple terms. We can say it's a systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. So basically, research is everywhere. I mean, in the marketplace, in the medical field, just as long as you're looking into something, just to get some facts, that can be qualified as research. But now what we're talking about today is scientific research. So whereby scientific research is a systematic and an objective process. So it's important for it to be systematic and objective. Now for you to identify, collect data, analyze, disseminate it, to provide solutions. So as we'll see later, one of the ways in which you can come up with new knowledge or just get solutions to some of the problems that we have. For example, now there's, SARS-CoV-2 that guys are looking into, coming up with a vaccine. That's all research that's going into it. So that's basically an introduction to know what research is. So we're talking about the process of identifying, collecting data, analyzing it, disseminating it, for the purpose of providing solutions. Now, why research? So research, so one is we know so many things that we've not questioned, or we just are told things. So one of the reasons why you can engage in research or importance of research is to challenge familiar common sense beliefs. For example, we can challenge ourselves. We've been told, for example, this particular drug works, so you can just question that and be like, how does it work? Does it really work? So you can, through, of course, the ethical and putting everything into consideration, ethical requirements, you can decide to have a controlled scenario whereby you have some people test the drug and see. So just challenging familiar common sense beliefs to see why into whatever reason, whatever phenomena you have in your head. Second reason why research is important is for us to be able to discover new knowledge. So much of where we are today in terms of medicine, even all the things that we are learning in our various institutions, or things that are there today, it's because someone did research into it. Think about even physics, the laws of gravity, the drugs, even some of the knowledge in our books, all that, it's secondary to research. So that's one of the reasons why research is very important. The second one is to help describe a phenomena. So you can do a research, for example, to describe how the impact of something, let's say impact of drought or impact of malaria on a population, just to describe what's happening. And then finally, just not to mention everything, but just to help us guide our discussion today, why we do research is to be able to make predictions. So you've seen this mostly in marketplace. You can be able to do research for you to know how will the markets look in the next few years, and that will help you make decisions today. Not only the marketplace, but even epidemiologically, can be able to see a trend in a particular disease, or just be able to make predictions. So that's briefly just discussing why research is very important, and particularly for us, because I understand this is a Medical Students Association of Kenya workshop. So some of us are students. So it's very important for us to be able to pick out research early, for us, one, to be able to contribute in already existing knowledge. And we're going to be able to see later on how we can, just systematically go step by step to come up with some of these research ideas and how to go about it. So next, we're going to talk about factors. So if you were to carry out a research project, just decide, okay, today, or I'm conceptualizing a research idea, and yeah, what are some of the factors that will guarantee that you have, a good research project? Because not only do you want to carry out research, but you want to carry out research that's meaningful and impactful, to be able to do the reasons, to be able to do the functions that you've described earlier on. So the first thing that I described as one of the one thing that will guarantee for you have a good research is clear definition of your research purpose. You need to be able to have a reason. You don't just carry out research because you have the ability to do so. So you just need to come up with a proper problem that your research is going to solve, because from our definition, we saw research is to help solve certain problems in our community, society. Secondly, you need then to be able to detail the research process. This is all the way from proposal development, that's after you've come up with a title, of course, all the way to the end when you've collected your data and you're planning to disseminate that information. So that proper planning is key for you to be able to have a good research. And then finally, thirdly, need to be able to observe high ethical standards. I'm sure some of, some things like Tuskegee experiments that were carried out earlier on, they were very unethical. That's led to development of some ethics guidelines, ethical guidelines that guide researchers in carrying out research. So at the bare minimum, you should not do harm. Like all of us in the medical field know that. So while you're doing your research, there needs to be that. You also need to be able to have, provide for justice, such that you're not biased in whoever is coming in your research or not. So just observation of high ethical standards. And that's the reason why when you're carrying out a research, it has to go through an ethical board. Finally, you need to be able to do a logical analysis and interpretation of the results. And this is very key, because now once you've collected your data in the field, then you need to be able to analyze it without bias. Sometimes you have situations where you had a certain hypothesis and you want to be able to, manipulate results to fit in a particular thing that you want, but you should be able to be sober enough to report and analyze and interpret the results soberly according to scientific principles that are in place. Then you need to be able to do a good presentation of the results, and there are various ways to present the results. It could be in graphs, it could be in this frequency tables. Just a proper presentation of results will guarantee like you have a good research. And finally, you need to be able to draw proper conclusions, which is where our, the whole reason why you're doing out a research from is the conclusion that you've come into. So as even I continue, in case there's any questions, please feel free to be able to type them on the chat box. I think we'll be able to tackle them at the end of the presentation. Or if it's a really burning question, you can, just unmute your mic and ask. Okay. So let's just go to a few examples, or just study designs. There are various, when you're talking about research, you have various study designs, as you're going to see in the coming slides, how in the steps in research, there's a place where you have to determine what's your study design. So that's how you can classify research, into various types. You can have a descriptive or analytical. So in descriptive, this is where you're talking about case reports, case series. This is and cross-sectional studies. This is, I wouldn't say like simpler, but it's more straightforward, because this is where you have a case report and then you report it. That's, if there's, for example, in your clinical rotations, you've seen an interesting case. A patient presents with an interesting case, maybe if it's not been reported in literature before where you are, or just you're able to manage a complicated case, then it's allowed to be able to just document that and share with the world. So disseminate that knowledge. And that can help someone elsewhere, either a clinician or even in the, contributing to the current literature or even for educational purposes. So that's on the descriptive part. And then you can have analytical studies. So analytical studies is more, I'd say it's more involving and maybe even more resource involving. So you can have analytical, or you can have observational and experimental. Again, now observational are, this is why it's a controlled kind of research. So you can have cross-sectional studies, case control studies, cohort studies. So again, these ones, it's why you just put this kind of group of people together and you're able to observe your variables. So let's say, for example, you have group A where you group A where you give them a certain drug, and group B where they're not given a certain drug. And then you just observe how do you observe the variables that you're studying, how does that progress, so the people who are given a drug and people who are not given a drug. So they're just observational. And now at the experimental level, which is more resource, it requires more resources, and it's a lab and all those things, could be now, like, for example, development of vaccines now, which is what everyone is talking about right now, a vaccine for SARS-CoV-2, whereby those will be now experimental research. This is all types of research. So these are various research study designs. So before even you engage or you decide, okay, I want to carry out a research, you need to have it at the back of your mind. What kind of a study design am I going for? Am I going for a descriptive, analytical? That will help you even in your budgeting process, in just planning what is your study population, all that. Then I'd like us to go into steps in conducting a research. So the first one is develop research question. So we are going to look more into detail. How do you come up with a research question? And we're also going to give, we are going to have an activity where we come up with a research question and just see if we can just challenge ourselves to come up with one, which is the whole idea of us having this workshop today, for you to understand what research is and be able to just stand on your feet and carry out research. So the first thing in conducting research is developing a research question. Secondly, you need to be able to develop a study design. Now, what you've discussed before, once you have, I want to study communicable diseases, particularly I want to study, let's say, malaria, then it'll be like, what kind of a study design am I going to have? Am I going to have descriptive, analytical? No. So develop a study design. Then you implement. So you actually go to the field, carry out the design. Of course, before doing that, there's paperwork in coming up with a research proposal and all that. That's going to be covered in the next part. But just implement the study after you've come up with your study design, and then findings of your study. What are the findings of your study? And finally, you make inferences or draw conclusions. That you are able to disseminate this data to the public and having carried out a research. So just in summary, it's you develop a research question, then develop a study design for it, implement the study. What are the findings of your study? So you interpret, analyze all those, and then make now inferences and draw conclusions. And onto our last part of today, we're going to discuss how do you choose a research subject area. So this will be basically, so after realizing I have interest in research, so what are some of the motivating factors that help people, because people think, oh, this is complicated, or even sometimes for some institutions where it's not compulsory for you to do research in your undergraduate, maybe you're like, I'll do it in master's. But really, you don't have to do, because you can just see there are various ways which can, you can look at research. The first one could be just their personal initiative, whereby earlier, and still even now, most early researchers, it was just personal initiative. People, you're curious about something, you want to, like for example, how literature says, how Isaac Newton discovered about laws of gravity. It was just personal initiative. There was nothing else, attached. So that could be one of the ways whereby you have this idea that you have by yourself, and you're like, okay, I would like to investigate and see what's the scientific basis for it. Secondly, could be personal observation. So this could be in school, at work, community, in the country. For example, you could see, why do certain group of people get affected by a particular disease? So this is an observation that you've seen maybe in your clinical rotations, or you've seen, this particular age group is affected by a particular type of a disease. So just from that observation, then it can trigger you to be able to decide to study it. That's personal observations. Thirdly, you can have review of existing records. So again, I'll give an example of an hospital setup whereby the records show diseases, certain diseases, there's high incidence, or certain diseases are associated with fatalities. This could be a trigger factor to push you to be able to look further into that topic and see, why is it? Because remember, at the end of the day, research, you want to provide solutions. We want to disseminate knowledge and educate our people. Can also have review of literature. This is for the people who like, reading. There are certain journals that are out there, papers that have been published by previous authors. But as you're reading these papers, you find some questions like, why did you come to this conclusion? Or there's gaps in knowledge. Certain components are not reported. So you can decide to fill the gap that's already existent by carrying out a research project on that. Then public demand. Currently, I just put this, currently there's a demand for, a vaccine. So that could be, again, something that could lead you to carry out research in that particular area, or certain foods or drinks that affect people. Or you found when people take this particular drink or this food, they come with a particular disease. Then you want to find out what is the relationship between the two. Then you can design a study and do it. Then demand by academic institutions. This probably is why most students carry out research, because it's a requirement for you to graduate, but it shouldn't be like that. You can also carry out a proper research, which can help, in the learning process. Personally, or even as tomorrow, we'll be hearing certain testimonials from people who've, had some experience in research when they're still students. It helps a lot when you carry out research. You're able to see things from a different perspective, and it also widens your reading and helps you acquire more knowledge. Then you can have demand by employing organizations. So maybe an organization wants to launch a new product, but they want a market research for it. So that could, again, something else that can help you and motivate you to do a research. Then demand by donor organizations. This particularly example of donor organizations is UNICEF, or maybe they don't, before they give you funds, what is the current situation about children? What's nutritional status? So then you can get inspiration to carry out research, because before you get funding to carry out the projects that you want, then you need to have statistical evidence of what's actually on the ground. So that's a basic introduction to research, and I put more emphasis on motivating factors to carry out research, so that you can see there are research topics everywhere around us. You just need to be able to be observant and know what you're looking for. Yeah, so with that, that's my time. Thank you for listening. Over to you, Gagan. Unless there's any questions, I'll be taking.
Thank you, Dennis, for that absolutely informative session. Does anybody have any questions? You can either message them on the chat below, or you can even just unmute your mic and ask Dennis your questions right now. So we'll give you guys like a minute or two to collect your questions or to type them down below, and then you can ask them. Dennis, I think you did a really good job. Nobody has any questions for you.
Thank you. Thank you. But I hope if any questions arise, just feel free to leave them on the chat box. We'll be able to respond to them accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, so we can now move on to our next session, where we would have a little breakout session for forming a research questions. Can I just invite Muthoni at this point to coordinate that? And then I can divide into the breakout rooms if you can explain what needs to be done.
Hi guys. I think the best person to have explained the breakout room would be Dennis.
Okay.
I'll hand it over to him.
Okay.
All right.
Doctor, we
Okay.
have a
all right. So
continue.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to have 10 minutes, whereby we're going to be automatic. We're going to split people into small groups. Then it's just a small activity whereby we're going to come up with a research topic, just a research topic that you think could be viable. So we might have an award for the best topic. So we'll just do that briefly, give 10 minutes for guys to just discuss within their small groups a research topic. And then you're going to select one representative who will share the research topic briefly within 2 minutes to us. And then we're going to see how easy it is coming up with a research project and research topic. And now that can start the process of the whole research study. I mean, coming up with a research idea. So I hope that's clear. Okay. Thank you. You're on mute. Oh, okay.
So you will shortly just see a pop-up on your screens, and then you will be taken to your breakout rooms. Okay. So you can just move into your rooms. Okay. I hope you all enjoyed that breakout session and you've come up with some interesting research studies. So I will now give the floor to Muthoni, and then she will be able to take us through whatever you guys have discussed. So Muthoni, you can now take over and you can possibly introduce yourself to them as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi guys, my name is Mudhani Kibonyi and I'll be taking you guys over the next session. And the next session, we will start with the breakout rooms, the results of the breakout rooms. So we can start with, I expect 4 answers from each of us because there were 4 breakout rooms. So each volunteer of each breakout room, you can unmute yourself and tell us the topics that you came up with.
Okay, so Mudhani, I'll just start. Okay, so I'm representing group 4. My name is Anita. So our study is a study determining the presentation of SARS-CoV-2 in HIV patients. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Anita. So group 3, 2, and 1, what were your answers? Anyone? Okay, for group 3, I've seen it was knowledge and attitude towards PCOS in female students. Thank you, Sanchege. Yeah, thank you. So that's from group 3. What about group 2 and group 1?
For group 2, we decided we're going to determine the effectiveness of incinerators in our hospitals.
Determine, pardon? Determine?
Determine the effectiveness of incinerators in our hospitals and waste management.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So determine the effectiveness of incinerators and?
In hospitals and waste management.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's group 2, right?
That's group 2, yeah.
Okay, so group 1? Group 1? You can message me. Anyone who was in group 1? Anyone? Okay. So group 1, let's just say you did not do your homework, but it's okay. So we have 3 interesting topics. So group 2 being determining the effectiveness of incinerators and in hospitals and waste management. Group 3 being the knowledge and attitudes of PCOS in female students. Group 4 being a study determining the presentation of SARS-CoV-2 in HIV patients. These are all very interesting topics. And as you see, when we start our next session, you will note that a topic is meant to be short and interesting. And I can say all the topics presented to me were short and interesting. So kudos to you guys. Okay, I think now I can start off the second session. While I'll be doing the remaining bit of the introduction to research. It will not take long, and I hope you will bear with me as we go on. Okay. So I hope you can see my screen. We will start off with the steps of a research, and these are mostly what are the questions? Okay, the steps that were covered by Dennis. So mine will be in question format. So what are the questions? That is where we'll be stating the problems. What will I do? That is where we have the plan of action. How do I do it? That's where we have implementation of the plan. What happened? That's where we'll be analyzing the data. What does this mean? Interpretation of the data collected. Is my logic correct? That's where we'll be re-examining the data collected. And what next? That is basically dissemination of the study results. Okay. A research study usually comprises of a topic. As I said, the topic should be interesting and short. An abstract, which is usually written last, is basically a summary of the study. And a proposal structure of the abstract usually differs from a manuscript. For a proposal, we usually have the background, the broad objective, the methodology, and the significance of the study. For the manuscript, we're writing a research that has already taken place, as compared to a proposal where we're writing a research that is going to take place. So in this case, for a manuscript under the methodology, we'll write what we did, as compared to a proposal where we're going to be saying what we want to accomplish. As I've mentioned before, it's usually the last thing that is written in either a proposal or a manuscript. An introduction describes the rationale for the study, and that's where we usually have the background, the problem statement, significance of the study, research questions, broad objective, and the specific objectives. And literature review, where it usually describes the history of the problem being investigated and better ways to approach the problem, basically giving your introduction more power, if I put it that way. Methodology are the logistics behind carrying out the study. And under methodology, we usually have the study design, the study area description, the study population, the sample size determination, the sampling procedure, the variables which are either dependent or independent, the data collection procedures, and the materials that are going to be used to carry out the research. And then we have the ethical consideration, data management, study results dissemination plan, the limitations and how you're going to minimize them, and the study closure plan procedures. Then we have the referencing, where we have different types of referencing, Vancouver, Harvard, APA, and the budget of the study. For the ethical review, basically what I mean is ethics is, as I've written here, is the system of moral standards that govern behavior of a group of people or members of a profession. And ethical review is usually sought after writing the proposal. So you come up with your proposal and then you submit it to the ethical review committee. And it usually ensures the 4 principles of ethics are observed, being the respect for persons. So to elaborate further, respect for persons is that if you want to carry out a research that has human participants, you should be able to detail how you're going to ensure that you've maintained or put up ways in ensuring that one, the rights and capacity of the participants are maintained. The participant has a right to getting informed consent. And the second one would be beneficence, where we say do no harm. So the researcher must protect physical, mental, and the social well-being of the human participant, and retain the community perspective. That is, do your research in accordance to how people in that community live. Justice would be ensuring that you as a researcher ensure a fair distribution of risks and benefits. And then the fourth principle would be an informed consent. So ensuring that the participants have adequately understood the information being presented to them. So the various ERC bodies would include the KNH, UN, ERC, and also the WHO ERC, where if you visited each website, you'll be able to see the documents that they usually have, so that you can be able to know what they are usually looking out for. It usually takes 4 to 8 weeks to get an ethical approval, or even longer, depending on the number of corrections you usually have. Dissemination of the data is basically, dissemination is to spread, and you're spreading to the key stakeholders or the end users. So why do we disseminate data? These are a few reasons why. Creating awareness, getting critique from your fellow peer reviewers, policy making, so guiding, forming policies, knowledge pool, and creating a starting point for new research. Avenues that one can use would be presentations at journal clubs or conferences or CMEs, publications in scholarly journals, and popular media, so newspapers, TVs, magazines, and blogs. Publication overview. So if you look at the 2 documents that I sent on the WhatsApp group, and there's one that is titled Nurses' Knowledge of the Universal Health Coverage for Inclusive and Sustainable Elderly Care Services. If you look at the manuscript, it has a title, which would be Nurse Knowledge of Universal Health Coverage, an abstract that has objectives, methodology, and a conclusion. It also has an introduction, the methodology, the results, the conclusion, and references. And it's a 10-page document that you can look at, which would be able to give you an overview of how a manuscript should look. The various journals that you can publish at REPUB, which was introduced to us very well by Dennis in the first session, Scopus, and the New England Journal of Medicine and the Journal of Clinical Oncology, among others. Benefits of publishing, which we all know, we write papers so that at the end of the day, we can be able to publish the papers, to make one's research recognized, help the society, so guide for policy making, upgrade one's knowledge, and improves one's writing skills. But either way, a manuscript can be accepted or rejected. And why would it be rejected? Because we have the wrong journal or format of the manuscript, a disorganized study design, defective tables, poorly written articles, among others. I just chose a few reasons to explain my points. So that's it. Thank you. If you have any questions, please You can always ask. Yeah. Gagan, back to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mutoni. That was a really good session. I'm sure we all have a general layout on how to conduct research. And then if you would want any more details or any questions or clarifications, please send your questions in the chat, or you can even just unmute your mic and ask the questions at the end of the session. Mutoni, are you ready to quiz your participants today?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay.
Really eager to see whether we were all paying attention.
Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen and then you guys can follow the instructions on my screen so we can do a quick quiz on what we have learned today. Can you guys see my screen? Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so if you guys can just go on this website and enter the code, and then we can start the quiz.
It won't be a hard quiz.
Yes.
So let us all join.
I think nobody is even joining the quiz because they're scared.
No, it's not hard, you guys.
So we just go onto this website and enter the game code, and it should direct you. Okay. I guess I'm my own participant.
No,
And so,
there's Hunter.
okay. Anybody else? Does any? Okay, great.
Vale, Anita. Yay, you guys are joining.
Yeah.
Let us join all of us.
Yeah. So we'll give 1 more minute for everyone to join in, and then we can start.
15 of us, so we can join 15 or yeah, more people.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Okay, we're 8 of us. We can have a few more people join in. I'm sure it wouldn't be hard at all.
Yeah. I'm liking the spirit. Let us go on.
Okay, we're 10.
Yeah.
11 now.
Okay, we can start. Unless
Okay.
they're
Okay. I'll stop sharing my screen for now for the quiz. We're just waiting for one more person to complete and then we can see the results. Okay, so let's see who won. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so we can see, oh, okay, I'm not sure what happened with that, but it seems like it's closed. But Tony, were you able to see who won? Okay, here we are. Sorry about that. Okay. So here we have the winners for it. We have Anita as the first one, Hunter came second, and Oceani came third. So Anita, congratulations. You have
Congratulations, Anita.
paid attention to today's workshop really well.
And Hunter and Oceani, congratulations. And congratulations for everyone who participated in the quiz. At least we did a good job today. So that's today.
You can go ahead, Mutoni.
That's it for today. Thank you, Gagan and Dennis, for being great co-hosts today. Thank you for everyone who participated and listened to us. I hope we learned something, and I can't wait for all of us to convene once again tomorrow. So for tomorrow's session, we will put all that we have done today into practice. We will get 3 speakers to come and talk to us about their experience in research as medics. All three researchers started their research journey in medical schools. So I hope it will be a challenge to all of us tomorrow so that we can put all that we learn into practice. So can't wait to see you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, Mutoni. Maybe before we all go, if everybody would like to switch on their video so we can take one picture so we know we were all here for today's session. So should we switch on our videos for a quick 5 seconds, maybe? Okay, I can see everyone switching on their videos. Keep a few seconds for everyone else as well. Okay. Is everyone ready for their picture? Okay, thank you everyone. And we will see you tomorrow during the session at the same time. You'll use the same link to join. And if you haven't joined the WhatsApp group as well, I will send the link again in the chat box for everyone to join. You can now leave at your own leisure. Thank you very much for joining us today. And thank you, Dennis and Mutoni, for taking us over today's workshop. Thank you.